This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
If someone's running at you over 20 miles per hour and hits you, they're going to have a lot more velocity and momentum than if they're running 17, 18. And our guys swarm, and I would say we were the most physical team all 14 games.
Welcome to this episode of Sprint-Based Football, presented by Titan GPS. Coaches, founded and based in Texas, Titan GPS is your key to sprint-based football success. Designed specifically for high school football, Titan tracks the metrics that matter, like top speed, explosive acceleration, and even the powerful truck stick, speed times weight, for the ultimate performance insight. Whether it's optimizing practice, spotlighting players with 3D highlights, or giving recruiters verified in-game stats, Titan delivers. And with no minimums to get started, Titan walks you through every step. Message them on X @TitanSensor to learn more. Titan GPS, performance measured, potential unlocked. Welcome to episode 4 of the Sprint-Based Football Podcast. I am Tony Holler, and I am today with Dan Quesenberry, who goes by Coach Q. And Dan is from Ravenwood High School in Tennessee. Ravenwood is actually in Brentwood. Is that correct, Dan?
That's correct, yes.
Now, are all the houses expensive in Brentwood?
Yeah, I think the last I heard, this might have been a year ago, one of the department chairs at our school in the meeting, the median house price is $1.7 million in our area.
Yes.
And it's probably more than that now.
Yes.
So it's probably been 18 months, yeah.
I'm aware of it because we talked about this, but in 2004, I actually interviewed for a position that was not there yet, but I interviewed with a very impressive principal at Ravenwood and ended up going to Franklin High School. And I was really impressed with Franklin as being a rich, wealthy, wonderful community. But our neighbors to the north in Brentwood just seemed really impressive if you drive through the neighborhoods and stuff. So it is, I would say it's pretty much where the money of Nashville lives.
Yes, and if you haven't, have you been back since
No.
04 or
not
you'll be
your area?
Oh, then you'll be amazed. I mean, it's because I moved here in '99, so same thing. But Nashville, probably the last 10, 12 years, it's just the whole skyline is probably triple the size. The neighborhoods in Brentwood, the traffic's awful now. But every neighborhood that goes in, it says $2 to $3 million. It's crazy. Yeah, but you probably won't recognize the area.
No, I probably won't. I can't wait to see it. Now, even though you have obviously kids from wealthy families, your football program has just been outstanding.
Yes, Ravenwood opened in, 2001, 2002, I think. So I was actually coaching at Brentwood High. So it's crazy because I think you and I connected on Twitter one time. I reached out regarding something, and you said you actually interviewed at Ravenwood, and then you even knew Coach Crawford from Brentwood, who he should be in attendance at our sprint-based football. He's actually at Christian Brothers in Memphis. He's a defensive coordinator, so he retired public schools. He's getting his retirement, but he's coaching at the private school with Tommy McDaniel, who used to be Oakland's head coach. The 6A power that we always deal with here. So they're together at Christian Brothers in Memphis. But anyway, so Ravenwood opened around 02, and all those kids came from Brentwood. And then since you've been gone in 2016, Nolensville High School opened. So I don't know if you remember, Nolensville is a community right next to Brentwood. So they're a full high school, and they're getting ready to open another high school south of Nolensville in a year or two. So this whole area has just exploded.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Franklin in 2004, I believe that was the year after Independence opened, and
Right.
Williamson County schools were just, we went from a dying town in Southern Illinois to probably one of the most progressive. People were moving in from everywhere, and it's just a fantastic area. So tell me how long you guys have been considering yourself sprint-based football.
I'd say we're going on year 4. Yeah. Yeah, fourth year. Because I came back to Ravenwood in 21 and we weren't. So I coached, like I said, at Brentwood High School back from 2002 to 2012. Coach Crawford went to Cleveland, was with him, and then Coach Hester took the head job at Ravenwood. He was our offensive line coach at Brentwood. He took the Ravenwood job in 2013, and so I followed him to Ravenwood, and then spent 3 years with him. And then he ended up going to Nolensville to open that school. My son was coming of age to play youth football, and I always said, I'm not going to miss my kids' sports to coach a bunch of other people's kids. So I started doing the youth football, which is a whole different gear. But then I got really heavy into the strength side. And I always loved the training part. Back when I played, when I was at Brentwood with Coach Crawford and then with Ravenwood with Hester the first time, but it was more of what you typically see in a lot of schools, especially 10 years ago, where the coaches ran the training program, but we weren't necessarily prepared to do so. It's just back to what we'll talk about, old school football, break them down before, and then build them up and then make them tougher. I hate to say it, but the old saying, drag their nuts through the sand, if you will. All the things that I did growing up and we thought was right. So I got into the heavy strength training. I always thought the kids could move better. And then when I came back to Ravenwood in 2021, I found you on Twitter and Feed the Cats. I did some of your coach tubes. I started going to, you know how it is. You go down rabbit holes and it goes one or two ways. You get that hook and it pulls you in, and you definitely pulled me in. I was like, this is a better way to do it. So 2021, the first year, we weren't necessarily feeding the cats. We started in 22, and then I battled with some coaches on board, some not. That goes. Now, Coach Hester was, and that's what you need, the head coach. And I remember that spring practice. I was like, this is what I think we should do, because it doesn't matter what I do if the coaches don't want to do it. I was like, this is what we should do. He goes, let's try it. And we did it the first week of spring practice and the week 2. And what he noticed, and I know you've talked about on podcast, was they practiced better just from starting practice with the speed drills, hitting a couple sprints, and then going to practice. Forget the waste of time, 15, 20-minute dynamic warm-up, and everyone's just going through the motion. You're just wasting 20 minutes. And so he was hooked. Well, then as we get into summer and the summer training, he would do it right, but a lot of the coaches, it's not that they wouldn't implement it, they wouldn't do the rest intervals right. If I had programmed, it's a full 2-minute rest, because they would 15 set go, or we're doing 5 reps with a full rep. No, it's 10 reps. And the players knew, because I'm big on being very transparent with the guys. This is what we're doing, why we do it, so they understand, and they understand the intent. And then they would tell me. So at the time that year, because we have so many players, like right now, we have 128 guys on our varsity roster. That doesn't count the freshman team as another 50 guys. So you're talking 170 plus guys on our football team. And so what would happen is, in the summer, I've got to work waves of groups. So I'll have like the O-line, D-line, we call the big skill, come in, specialist, and they may start on the field and do their speed work, plyos, throws, transition to the weight room. As they transition, then the offensive skill may come in, and then the defensive skill, and then I finish with freshmen. So what would happen is I was always in the weight room because it was more technical, and then it was programming for the speed, but then we were finding out it wasn't being done correctly. So what we changed the following year was, in the summer, we go 4 days, Monday through Thursday. Monday, Wednesday are speed days. And so we're going to get them Monday when they're fresh. We're going to do the plyos, the throws, and then they're allowed to do some practice things. So we do some of the Tony Villani game speed and that kind of stuff we work in. And then Tuesday, Thursday were the lift days. So what that allowed was I was at all of it. So I made sure we were implementing it the right way and giving them the rest and recovery they needed to truly benefit from it.
Yeah, I love that. In football, if a guy plays one way, he plays about 5 minutes of football. in
Yeah.
like a 2.5 hour game. And that's like, it's like a 30-1
Yeah.
standing around to play rest. I mean, the ratio is crazy. 30 minutes of loitering for every 1 minute of play. And
Yeah.
but yet coaches, as you know, it drives them crazy to see any type of standing around or
Oh,
walking
yeah.
back to the huddle. Brad Dixon says the hardest thing for him with sprint-based football was allowing people to walk back to the huddle. But he
Yeah.
realized that by walking back, their next play would be at game speed, which
Right.
if you're not practicing at game speed, it's what in the hell are you doing?
Yeah. And we're a no huddle team like a lot, and they'll go tempo, but that fast tempo is rare in the game. The play clock gets down to 5 all the time because what do? They stand there, they look at the coach, they shift the format, they look at the coach, and sometimes, it's like, all right, you got to run a play now. So it's not even that fast.
Right.
So.
Now, with tempo, that's a fascinating subject because I get asked the two biggest questions I get asked: if you have two-way players, don't they have to condition twice as hard? Which the answer is no. And the other thing is, if like I've had coaches say we run a play every 11 seconds, and I look that up, and it's like no,
No.
nobody
Yeah.
runs a play every 11 seconds. Plus, the average drive is only 6 plays, and so it's very interesting. But they think that because you're running tempo offense, that conditioning is even more important. And you probably don't
Yeah.
agree.
No, not at all. Yeah. So we've done the stats and we'll go over this at the clinic, but the yardage, because we wear the catapults. Now, I hope that's okay. I know you guys Titan
Oh,
sensors, one of the
it's all good.
sponsors, but that's just what we have, the catapult. So it tracks not only their miles per hour, but all their yardage. We wear them in practice. And what we got in games, guys, even one side end up covering anywhere from 6 to up to 8 miles, which is crazy. And our biggest practice is probably 45% of that. So we don't even get half of that on our main practice day on a Tuesday. They barely, which Monday, Wednesday, it's probably less than 30%. So we don't even get close to that number. But what we do is, and as you know, with those 2 speed days, Monday, Wednesday, this is in season, not count out of season. We push a third day, but we hit that max velocity. And then Wednesday, we treat it as more acceleration. But as we build their speed, then playing around 14, 16 miles per hour is no big deal. And our guys don't get tired.
There's so many things to unpack from those statements. The idea that without conditioning, you can still play at a very high level for a long time because you are so much faster than the game speed. And that's just speed reserve. I always say that my father said that we're going to practice so hard that games are easy. So the idea that your practices are like double game volume is just turned upside down, right?
Right. And we're the opposite way.
You're the
Our
op-
game is double volume. And I'll tell you another quick story. You talk about the evolution of Ravenwood running it. That second year, some of those coaches, we had some coaching turnover because when Hester came back, sometimes you get the old coaches and you get new ones. We hired 3 coaches from California. One of them coached at De La Salle, the movie When the
yes.
Game Stands Tall. He actually was a quarterback coach of the Titans head coach. What's his name? He was at the Bengals. He's the head coach. I'm a Steelers fan, so I
It's
don't even
okay.
remember.
It's
Anyway,
okay. The Titans got
so he played quarterback at De La Salle. Well, he came, another guy, Ken Holloway, and then a third guy, Ricky Rodriguez, who was a head coach in California too. So this was all new to them too. And what they noticed was that second summer when we were implementing this, we would go do all the 7-on-7s everyone does. Now remember, we don't do any conditioning. And these teams, they'll play 5, 6, 7, 7-on-7s in a day, which is stupid in its own. But that's another topic. But what they noticed was when we'd play these teams, we would get to the second half of it or the third game. Our guys were lined up fresh, bouncing around. The other team, hands on the knees, walking slow to the sideline. And that's when the coaches go, all right, this works. And then you get the coaches buy-in. I don't say anything. They just tell me what to do. They just do it. And the buy-in's 100%.
Yeah, I urge people to let the games be hard. I say that a practice volume should never be more than 50 to 60% of game volume. But Garrett Moeller from Minnesota, we had him on the last podcast. And he uses the Titan sensors, and he's learned a lot as well, like you have. And he said that if you add up the sum of his Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they add up to just about a game volume. And that's like the
Yeah,
definition
that's
of
probably
letting
right.
it be hard. And
Yeah.
I have yet to talk to a single coach that says the downside of the Feed the Cats approach is the fact that the fourth quarter, you may not get through it. It seems like it's the opposite, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our guys, they're fresh. They bounce around. They fly around. There's no fatigue. And we asked the player, and that was the thing too, as much as I'm talking about getting the coaches on board, you got to get the players. You got to remember they played youth football, middle school, their dad's coach. And what do? They coached them like they were coached. And they even at home, they're like, you got to work harder. And you may not have the buy-in even from the parents. You have to overcome that. So it's definitely an education piece. Anytime I get an opportunity to be in front of parents, I try to educate them what we do. We do a mom's camp every year where all the mamas come up. So we have over like 100 Ravenwood moms, and we start in the cafeteria. We have like a nutrition piece. We try to preach about meal prepping for your kids so they eat right, take their phones away before 9 o'clock, make them go to bed. And then they rotate through. They'll go to Coach Hester in the locker room, and he gives the football talk. They come see me in the weight room, and that's what we talk about, how we train them, the importance of the speed and the recovery. I mean, that's the thing too, back to our affluent area. These people can't afford a lot, and they'll want to go to this trainer here, that trainer there. And some may be good, but some of them are like snake oil salesmen, and you don't know, and they're not worried about what's best for the kid. They just want their money. And back to, if we sprint on Monday and they go to this guy or girl Tuesday, they can't sprint again. And they need the 48 to 72 hours for the central nervous system to recover. So we're always educating them on that. And I tell like some of the guys, we got JV guys, if we sprint Monday, Wednesday, and on Friday night, again, 130 players, you got a lot of guys that aren't going to play, obviously, especially the level we play at. I encourage them, if they've got that guy they trust and it's good on a Saturday, go do it. And then they'll be fine Monday. Go get that extra work on your speed because you're a sophomore. That'll help your development. I have no problem with that. But I do have a problem if they try to do it on a Sunday afternoon and then we're sprinting on Monday. I want that day between.
Yes.
And then it's
I love that. I think that what you said about dads is really important, because I don't know if you remember Craig Clayton, who took over for Tim Johnson at Franklin High School. He was very different than Tim. Both of them were great coaches. And Craig gave his players Thursday off.
Yeah.
And parents wanted to hang him for it. I mean, like, they thought that, I think he went 8-1 that year. And of course, the one loss is because they took Thursdays off. And
it's probably at Brentwood, right?
It probably was.
I just kidding. I was at Brentwood.
It probably was. It's either Brentwood or Ravenwood. One of them. It's probably Brentwood.
There you go.
Yeah. So I've often said that coaches sometimes resist a better way to do it, because working hard is job security. Yeah. That if you work your kids to death and they go 3-6, it's, well, at least nobody outworked them, And so, but if you're this believer in a performance-based program where kids are not getting injured, they're faster than ever as the season goes on, all those things. If you get beat doing that, you better educate your parents as to why you're doing that.
Right. And that's my whole point of being transparent with them. Like, the kids have to, like, we came back today. Today's our first day. We start our winter training, and our volume's we start simple. It's January 6th. There's no, I said, you should walk out of here and feel like, is that it? Yes, that's it. Yeah. And then we're going to build over time. I said, and even one kid asked him if he should do something tomorrow. I go, nope, we'll see you Wednesday.
You're going to take tomorrow off and build capacity. You're going to be patient with it. You got a whole year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We won't play till third week of August. So we have time. You'll like talking about that Thursday. What we do, it kind of worked out 2 years ago because we had one of those weeks here. The heat index was like 105, 108. And what the teams do, you can't go out and practice at 3 o'clock when it's 108. So they'll bring them in before school. No, I know that. We can cut into the sleep time, but you'll practice like it's 5:30, 6, whatever. And a lot of the guys love it. So what we ended up doing as a compromise, because we didn't want to do it all the time because we wanted them to go to bed and sleep in. On Thursday mornings, your typical football walkthrough day, it was 45 minutes. They come in at 6:15, which isn't too bad. And they're out there till about 7. And then they always have their guest motivational speaker on a Thursday, and they're done, which means Thursday after school, they can just go be a kid. We don't see them till Friday after school, 4 o'clock, get ready for your game. So they get 36 hours away from the game.
Don't you think that makes them better for the game?
Oh, 100%.
That's right.
Because they practice during the week. It just gets them away from it, and then they come back ready to go.
There's something about going home after school when you're an athlete that you feel like you're missing something. Like, it's great. I mean, it's the greatest day of the week. You're going home after school. But then again, you're like, gosh, I wish we had practice, which isn't a bad thing when you got a game the next night.
Right. Yeah. That's the only day that they get to do it.
Yes.
And most schools don't do that. Something different. And they got in our Red Zone Club boosters, feed them breakfast right after, and they go to the school day. And it's great.
Yeah. I go back to 2004. I know it's a long time ago, but it seems like yesterday. Here I was moving to a foreign land, Franklin, Tennessee, and Tim Johnson was the coach at the time, one of the most charismatic humans I've ever been around. Donnie Webb was the
he's still there.
And he's great. And Danny Knowles was the offensive coordinator. And I mean, I remember all those guys. Marshall Winkler was there. I mean, all these guys. And I thought they were kidding me when they said, make sure you bring your mattress to the first day of camp, August 1st.
Yeah.
I went there and everybody had a mattress.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what am I into here? And so I went home and got a mattress, and we literally stayed the night at the school for 5 consecutive nights at camp, and we were on the field at 7 a.m.
Right, players and coaches, or just the coaches stayed on that? Players.
It was like 24 hours a day of practice, meetings, really good food from the parents.
Yeah.
It was the most bizarre experience in my life. And you say, well, with you and I know now, that's just crazy as hell. But we got second in the state that year, meaning that you can do things that are crazy as hell. And if you have a charismatic coach and a great offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, great special teams guy, and you have really good athletes, you may win anyway. And so it's really hard to convince people who have been through that, especially the success of old ways, that the new way is better.
Well, I mean, you go back to when Hester was at Ravenwood back in 2013, 14, 15. And those 3 years, we went 38-4, won the district all 3 years, were runners up in 14, lost by a 2-point conversion in overtime to Maryville, and then beat Maryville in 2015. And you talk about burning the steak. I mean, we charred the steak. I mean, it was bad. So, and they all survived. And actually, 2 of the players on that team coach with us now. Like, they're on the coaching staff. One's a receiver, running back, the Rowan brothers. And Van Jefferson was our big receiver. He went on to Ole Miss, ended up at Florida. He plays for the Steelers now. He won the Super Bowl with the Rams a few years ago. Remember the lady that went into labor at the end of the game?
Yes.
That was his wife and kids. So he was the player running off. Yeah, Van Jefferson. He was on that team. When they're around, and they watch us train now. They're like, this is nothing. What are you doing? Like, they're like, we didn't get to do this. I'm like, well, we evolved. It's been 10 years. And like, as educators, you want to be like, this is my 27th year. I want to have 27 years experience, not 1 year experience and do it 27 times, which some people do,
It's just amazing to hear those stories. Tell me, if somebody is hearing us for the first time, or they bump into you and say, hey, I hear you're this feed the cats or sprint-based football guy. And we probably should mention that you've also changed your S&C title to S&S.
It's on here, yep. So like right here, I know this is probably just an audio thing, but it says Ravenwood Raptors strength and speed. We don't condition, so why am I going to put conditioning on my shirt?
I love that.
So we don't even, it's just strength and speed, yep.
Coaches, Titan GPS is the ultimate tool for football programs, including back-to-back Minnesota State champion Stewartville High School, a leader in sprint-based football. Built specifically for high school football, Titan tracks the metrics that matter: top speed, explosive acceleration, speed repeatability, and the game-changing truck stick. Titan's easy-to-use system delivers actionable insights at a glance, and their exceptional customer service ensures you're supported every step of the way. With built-in leaderboards to fuel competition and unmatched accountability, because the eye in the sky doesn't lie, champions trust Titan GPS, proudly made in the USA. Ready to join the best? Message them on X at Titan Sensor today to get started. You're like totally bought in. You're for people to understand how cool our world is right now. Like, this is the first time we've met face to face.
Right.
That we have never met before, but yet we feel like we know each other because of the information we share.
Right. And like-minded people. Now I feel like I know you a lot better because I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. So it's a little different there. But yeah, the whole, like, we don't condition. It's funny. There was trash cans left in the gym. Must have been something over the break. And I used them to mark lines. It was kind of funny. I was like, 10 years ago, we would have put those on purpose to say, okay, feel free to use that as you need it, because we would have made 10, 12 guys throw up. I think of the Urban Meyer Florida Gators, the Swamp Boys. Have you watched any of that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So they did it on purpose. Ours was literally used as a glorified cone to mark. But you know the old saying, any fool can make a man tired. Like, you know, it's harder, I say harder, but more strategic and more thought out what we do for our athletes than the person that has them do 100 burpees and 100 box jumps and run the stadium stairs 5 times and thinking they're making their players better. So
there's two things that popped in my head just now. And one is that one of the huge benefits of a feed the cat sprint-based football mindset is that practice has the potential to become the best part of a kid's day. And if that becomes the case, all of a sudden you may attract more cats, athletes, to your program. It sounds like you have great numbers. Do you think that your approach attracts athletes?
100%. And I never want to say like what we do is not hard. And that's part of my job, to teach back to the intent and the intensity. Your volume can be low, but that doesn't mean it has to be easy. And then everyone can think, we talk about, we make it fun, this and that, but we still coach the boys hard. You don't go 13-1 and be ranked number 1 in 6A football most of the state. We had the one hiccup in the semifinals, which we always said, and I think I told you before that game, if we get beat, we're going to beat ourselves, and that's what ended up happening. But that, I mean, that's any game. That's like, you take Oregon, they beat Ohio State, and look what happened. They just didn't show up in that game, and Ohio State took it to them. That happens in sports all the time. But it's kind of my point. Like, we don't keep them long. It's not a lot of reps, but what we do is with full focus and intention. It's no different if I'm taking a young weights class, a kid that struggle. I'd rather them learn how to do 3 good push-ups than give me that bob your head 10 push-ups that you see all the time. You know, it's no different. We want the quality over the quantity every day of the week.
Yeah, I'm told often, not often, but from a really smart guy that I know, that I need to stop talking against hard work. Instead, tell people you're redefining hard work, because it's hard to show up ready to perform in practice. You have to sleep the night before. You have to have good nutrition. You have to drink your 8 glasses of water. You have to do that. Is still hard work, and the games are hard as hell. And because we have not. I heard Keir Wenham Flatt said one time that a football coach, an old school football coach, if he was coaching marathoners, it's one of my favorite things ever. On the first day, they'd run 26 miles. On the second day, they'd run 30. On the second day, they'd run 40 because the guys were complaining about how sore they were. And that's kind of the mindset of these coaches that we love, because they're tough and driven and all those things. So redefining this hard work, I think, is just really important. And to understand that if you coach the old way, there's probably that point guard in basketball who would start for you may not want to play football. And
Right.
and you have a chance. If football is the best part of a kid's day and all the kids talk about how much football is great to them, you have a chance of getting every good athlete out.
Yeah. I mean, you don't keep 120, 30 players on a varsity roster, and if they go and practice sucks and we're just running them to death, they're like, what? Especially they're not playing. I mean, again, you got 120 on the sideline. There's only 11 on the field, and we two platoon. So we have like the Donovan Starr was a defensive corner. He's already at Auburn. I graduated early in December. He would play 6 to 10 offensive snaps because when someone runs 23 miles per hour, you need to find a way to get him the ball. And then same thing, we got our right tackle started for 3 straight years. He also played a little nose guard and a little D line in certain situations, but we didn't have guys go two-way. We didn't need to. Kickoff team was fresh bodies, kick return fresh bodies. And so you try to utilize a lot, but even then you may count 40, 50 guys. You still got 70 guys that do not see the field on a Friday night. So they want to be there because you're winning. They enjoy the practice. They enjoy the because they get trained the same. They're still getting faster. They're getting stronger. They feel good about it. They get to wear their Ravenwood gear and they're a part of it. And so it doesn't suck, right? They enjoy it. So
Now,
to your point.
Donovan Starr, I was aware of him a long time ago because you do something that Feed the Cats coaches do, which is record, rank, and publish. You perform in practice, and then you post numbers. And you can post numbers from GPS as well. But Donovan Starr kept hitting 23 miles an hour. And then you told me that wasn't the only thing. Like, he was a pretty damn good track athlete, too.
So he's the state champion as a junior in the 100, 10.5. Back-to-back sophomore, junior year state champion in the high jump, 6'9", and he's not competing his senior year because he's at Auburn now. So he did that as a 2-time state champion, sophomore, junior year high jump and 100 meter this past year, and he's hit 24 miles per hour on the track spiked.
So would you call him a pure cat?
A pure cat, yeah. I love it. Pure cat, yeah. Okay. Now we've got 5, 6 guys that are 22.8, 22.9 that are right there. And some are juniors, they'll be back. And then that's all on turf with cleats. And, that thick field turf, it's not runner friendly per se, or a fast track. So
there's some people that say that speed is just expressed in track, or that, Donovan Starr was a genetic freak. But what I tell these people, I've been doing this for about 25 years, where we record every time, everything. And the kids that will improve the most are not the Donovan Starrs. It seems
they don't have room. Yeah.
They don't have.
He doesn't have this room.
Their head is real close to their ceiling, which makes them a really good player because their ceiling is high. But the little generic kids become more and more elite. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, 100%. And I'm still pulling the data. It'll be at our sprint-based football clinic, but I'm going to have the stats up of our starting 11 on defense. And I think it'll blow people away. And when people pay this, like Ravenwood, and people don't realize that, you talk about getting stronger, and we want to be strong, especially tendon, ligaments, all that, you need it. But if someone's running at you over 20 miles per hour and hits you, they're going to have a lot more velocity and momentum than if they're running 17, 18. And our guys swarm, and I would say we were the most physical team all 14 games.
Can your big kids run? Can your big cats run?
Yeah, big cats. So we'll have the truck stick numbers. We'll put that up. And what's crazy, and the whole point of tracking it is, as you know, they say most teams lose 5 to 7% of their speed in season. And that may be people who think they're speed training. Our guys get faster. Our starting running back, who was a sophomore, he'll be a junior, he hit his best top speed week 2 of the playoffs. So here we are 12 games in, and he hit his PR on a Monday, max velocity day in season, second round of the playoffs.
And that is unheard of in old school football, right?
And I think I have to look at it. It was 9 to a dozen on our fall break. We had a bye week, so we played a Thursday night versus Summit, who's down south of Franklin. They probably weren't here when you were here. So we gave them off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and in fall break, we weren't going to have a game that Friday. So we only brought them in Monday, Tuesday, and then we're going to give them the rest of the week off. Well, we did our max V that Monday. We went and hit our sprint, and we had 9 to 12 guys hit their personal best ever. But look, they had 4 days off. They came in fresh. They were rested and had their best runs, and that was the middle of October.
Are kids in your program soft because of when you prioritize speed? Doesn't that make kids soft?
100% opposite. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. And that's what people think. But I knew, like this year, we had one of the toughest schedules. We opened at Alcoa, who's now won 18 of 20 state championships,
Right.
just won their 10th in a row. So they finished the year 14-1. They lost to Ravenwood. Oakland, who we beat in week 9 in overtime, finished 14-1, 6A state champions. They lost to Ravenwood. But if you look over the last 10, 20 years in the state of Tennessee, Alcoa, Oakland, everyone knows who they are. People in other states know who they are. I think both their coaches and staffs and players would say that Ravenwood was the most physical team they played. And when I say that, we go to Alcoa week 1, and we get the ball at, I think, our 14-yard line, and we go 86 yards, 15 plays. We threw one 5-yard pass, and you run the ball down 14 straight plays against a team like Alcoa and stick it in the end zone. I don't think you're soft.
Right. You can be old school tackle, block and tackle. You can be
100%.
You can be old school violent.
Yeah, well, it's like you've always said, like a coach, and if they evaluate a player, they want a fast, explosive, powerful athlete. Well, that's what we're making. Like you said, apex predators. We want racehorses, not workhorses. So we don't need them carrying all this load. We want them to be flying around. And we scale back if they're fatigued. So when we play Oakland or even our Battle of the Woods with Brentwood, our crosstown rival, and it's a physical game and starters play 4 quarters, what do I do Monday or Sunday and Tuesday in the weight room? We scale back. We'll still hit our sprint. If they're real beat up, we may just do 20 yards and just do accelerations. We pull back. And then when we play teams that we got the running clock and starters play 12, 18 snaps, and we can keep the intensity higher. So we'll even change our volume based on opponents and how the games are going.
Do you see speed as a barometer of health?
Yeah, so a good example there was when we came out of the 7-on-7 season, you started all the practicing in the regular scrimmages. There was a 10-day period? 10 to 14-day period where they had 4 scrimmages. And then they had a Friday, Saturday night overnight camp. So and that's more for team building. They really didn't even practice much. Coach Hester's great about it. He'll call me like, what do you think? They're not going to sleep there. So when they showed up Monday, I knew they were run down. So it's like, hit the speed drills, hit a couple accelerations, have a light practice. Weight room, I just cut the volume in half the whole week. And then when we did test, like our Donovan Star, not 23, he was like 21.8. So what does that mean? He's not healthy.
No.
Yeah, you're either not healthy or you're not trying. So we have that, you know what I mean? So you have that talk. But we know he's trying because they want to be great. They don't want to not try. So we scaled back, and then the next week he's 22.4, then he's 22.8, back to 23. We know we got our health back. So that, even the jumps, like we have the Skyhook jump mats.
Yeah.
We use that, or you measure the broad jump. So I think between those different ways we can tell, and the players tell us, like they'll come in, they're like, the steak's a little burnt. So we'll scale it back, and we'll tell Hester, cut practice short, let them go. They need to rest. Because to your point, you want them to be healthy going into the game, not limping, broken, and all that. So, and that was all that happened. We had those couple weeks to get ready to go to Alcoa. They had to be, and they were fine. And our guys are funny, like pregame when some teams do all this chanting and holler and they do their jumping jacks. As soon as we see a static stretch, I was like, all right, we won this game. That's when we know it's over. They're still living in 1985. And our guys just laugh because our warm-up stuff, it's like 5 minutes, do your ending drill. Everyone RPRs. We do that before every practice, every weight room, every speed, and pregame. So we keep all that short, and then, keep them as fresh as they can.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the RPR. But before I ask that, I've got to get this out there. One of the things that we just feel we really believe is true is that teams that are sprint based, they learn from their mistakes. Like if you burn the steak on Monday, you know it when you time sprint. So you learn how to adjust, like you just talked about. But because of that, and because your load is less, and because you do the RPR, kids just don't get hurt as often.
Right.
And I really believe, especially in this age of GPS, I get reports constantly that injuries are 90% load problems,
Right.
volume problems. Have you found a healthiness to your team that was not true with old school football?
So we go to Alcoa back in August, 22 starters. We go to Houston and Memphis Thanksgiving week, same 22 starters. So, and we always tell the players, what's your best availability? I think your best ability is availability, because that was the whole thing going into. We could talk. I know we're not talking as much weight room stuff, but teenagers, they, especially boys, it's how much can they lift, how much can they bench, how much can they, and that was one of the first things that had changed when I got there, was the quality over quantity, and them understanding that no one's going to put a squat rack at the 50-yard line or a bench press, and they don't care. At the end of the day, you can either play or you can't. And what kind of things do we measure if you can play? Are you fast? Can you jump? Can you run? All those things matter more than the weight you put on a bar. So that all ties into it as well. And from a health standpoint, because you can break yourself down. When I got there in 21, the number of guys that had shoulders, knees, backs, and it was all, from we said, load and not training properly. And they weren't doing the speed training. They were just doing the mindless conditioning, go in the weight room. I saw like the plans because I got access to them. The volume was insane, let alone to do it and then go try to practice for an hour and a half, 2 hours, or whatever you're doing. It was just impossible. So
Is
yes.
is RPR? I know you said that you guys use RPR. You're certified. I think that every sprint-based football coach I know of accepts RPR as like, this is just a part of what we do. Are there
Yeah.
other schools that do RPR in your area?
Not that I'm familiar with.
Well, that's probably going to change once we have this sprint-based football clinic on January 31st. It's a really good transition, by the way, talking about the clinic. And so you're going to be our host at Ravenwood High School, just south of Nashville, actually in Brentwood. And there's going to be 3 sessions on Friday night, 3 Saturday morning, 3 Saturday afternoon. It's not Super Bowl weekend. It's in between the semifinal or the
Conference championship.
Conference championship. And then, the Super Bowl is the next weekend. So it's a football-free weekend. And I think that we were talking before, I think that the Nashville airport's really easy to fly to.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have a really good crowd. But you are going to speak with your head football coach. Is that correct?
Yeah. He'll come up there too.
Cool. And then really exciting that we have you as a top-notch high school S&C guy. No, S&S guy, strength and speed guy. I stand corrected. But we have you. And then we have, from about 20 miles away, the head guy from Middle Tennessee State University, Jamie Blatnick, the head S&C guy for there. And I'm really impressed with him. Do you know him very well?
So we've got 2 of our guys are going to MTSU. One just graduated, our 6'6", 300-pound left tackle, Kyle Larkin, who would be a truck stick guy. He's going, so he's there now. And then one of our skill guys, Ben Hubbard, who's a 22.6, 22.7 guy. I think he hit 22 in a game this year. He's going. So I spoke to Jamie back before we even talked about this. That's why I reached out to him. He called because we wanted to get Kyle started on his off-season program with middle, and I was going to help him at Ravenwood until he graduated a couple of weeks ago. So Jamie and I talked for a long time, and that's the only point of contact. And then when you and I were talking about getting coaches to come in to speak, I reached out to him. I thought, because when he and I talked, he asked what we did, how we trained, and it was kind of like our conversation here. We felt like we knew each other because we were very like-minded. And I know he spent a lot of time at Oklahoma State, was one of the places. He's been a couple other places. So I know he played at Oklahoma State. He was a defensive tackle, so that it'll be the first time I've heard him speak too. And I saw he's speaking at the Tennessee State Strength Coaches Clinic later in February down in Chattanooga.
And then a guy that I know through Les Spellman, John Shaw is an interesting story. He was at University of Arizona for the huge turnaround where they
Right.
won like 3 games one year and almost won them all the next year. They
Yeah.
did so good that the entire coaching staff got new jobs. I think the head coach went to Washington. He went to Washington, and then the Titans offered him the speed job. So
Yeah.
here we have an NFL S&C, not just S&C, but an NFL speed and performance guy
Right.
talking, who is a part of Universal Speed Rating, a part of Les Bellman's group. And I just think that when we have those three, and then of course we have Brad Dixon and myself coming down. And the one thing I want to mention is that this is not really an S&C clinic. It is S&C or S&S, but it's really, I think the most important people to get to this clinic are football coaches, because as you mentioned, you've got to get the buy-in of your football staff,
Yeah.
or else they're just going to burn the stake every day.
Oh, 100%. We had a guy coached at Ravenwood like 4 years ago, and he was a huge RPR guy. Before I knew what it was, he was doing it with the freshman guys, but he's a college coach now up at a D2 or D3 school in Illinois. I got to remember the name of it. But anyway, he called me. It was probably about a week before our semifinal game. And like, what are you doing? Like, I want to know more. So I told him, I tried to get him to go up to the clinic in Chicago.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if he made it or not. I haven't talked to him. So hopefully he'll make it down. But he's trying to change the culture there. And he said the hardest sell is going to be the head coach. He goes, how did you do it? And like I said, my conversation was, this is what I think we should do. And Coach Hester goes, okay, let's do it. Which is,
Wow.
if you have that relationship. And that's why Hester brought me there. It's like he trusts me to do it. Just like I don't tell him what plays to run on Friday night. That's his job. He's the head football coach. But he never tells me what to do or not do in the weight room or on the field when it comes to the speed and strength stuff. So it works.
Yeah, there's a D3 coach in North Carolina that, gosh, no, I think it's in Virginia, that the last time I checked, they were 56-5 since they started sprint-based football. And they, get this, they practiced for 1 hour each of the first 3 days of the season.
Yeah.
And then they took the 4th day off. And I'm
Nice.
like, that is extreme sprint-based football.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it's causing them to lose games. And then the other D3 story I was going to tell you, Augustana University in Rock Island, Illinois, their coach, reasonably successful. And he actually spoke at a clinic and said something like this: sometimes you need to, even though it's not broken, you got to break it.
Right.
Like when I was talking about how old school Franklin was in 2004, and they still played for the state championship against Riverdale, and that they were not broken. They had a great staff, great coaches, great culture. I don't agree with the 3.5 hour practices and that kind of, but it wasn't really broken. But yet I see so many coaches who have won 75 or 80% of their games go ahead and tossing out the things that they held dear and say, let's get really fast, really explosive. Let's never get injured. Let's learn how to do this RPR thing. And it ends up being highly successful because when it really comes down to it, you have to perform in games.
Yeah. And that's where we are. I mean, we didn't have this moment in 2021 that we had to change. It was more like anything, continuing studying what you do, learning. And it was like, this makes sense. It just made sense. I mean, nothing to complicate it. Like,
let's just hope, Dan or Coach Q, I love that. Let's just hope that when we give away all these secrets on January 31st and February 1st, and like 60% of the state of Tennessee is adopting sprint-based football, that because you got into it so much earlier, that you know some of the nuances that they won't know for a while. And so you'll always be like 3 years ahead of them.
That's right. You always go stay a step ahead. Well, you know how it is too. And I love the way you say it's not, how do you say it? Not the recipe, it's a way to cook, right?
Yes.
Right. So it's a way to, it's the same thing with, you can talk to these strength coaches with strength programming. What I do at Ravenwood now is not what I did 2 years ago or 4 years ago. It evolves. It's based because now I've seen every class. But when I first got there, we had to fix a lot of things. We had to teach a lot of motor patterns and movement patterns. They had to learn how to move right. Well, now that stuff's taught. It's easier to build on top of, and it's the same thing with the speed. The RPR, we RPR this morning. When we're taking our breaths, we're right into it. Where when we started that, it was a process. We just taught zone one. We had the guys that were breathing in the chest, how to breathe in the diaphragm. We had to spend a lot of time on each zone of the wake up drills to where now we don't. So
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful thing that I'm really proud of the fact that sprint-based football, feed the cat stuff, it's a way to cook. It's not a recipe. And what that allows for is continued evolution.
yeah,
And I think I've heard people say, oh, feed the cats, it's just another plug and play system. No, it's not.
no, it's not.
Not
Yeah.
at all. And
And
that's why I think this podcast is going to be so cool, because I'm going to have conversations with 20 more coaches, just like I did with you. And I'll get to hear some of their nuance, some of the
yeah,
things that they're doing that they've evolved to do, but they're still under the umbrella of
right,
burn the steak.
right.
Let's be the fastest version of ourselves. That speed creates healthier athletes, and all those things I think really exciting for kids.
Yeah, well, we're at the mercy of what your facilities have, where you are climate. You've talked about it, like track in Texas is different than where you are. You know, the way they can run and get outside, or some of these schools like John Herschel has the facility to die for. When you come in and see what we have to work with, it's amazing. Ravenwood, like everything's nice, but the weight room's small. We don't have a practice facility. We do have a turf field now, and that's why I have to do the weight. You got to make it work. If we don't have enough prowlers, but we got great hills outside that we can sprint on to use and that kind of deal. So you got to cater it to what you have logistically, how it lays out, number of players, if you have help and whatnot. We do have the catapults. We do have that, but someone may not have that. They may have the gate timers or the laser, whatever it may be. So it definitely is. But like you said, as far as sprinting 2 to 3 times a week, emphasizing recovery and rest, that doesn't change. How you do it can look a little different, but at the end of the day, we're going to get the same results.
Yeah, we'll end with this, that whether you take Thursday off or you practice before school on Thursday, or you come in Thursday and you're just really careful not to burn the steak. Those are 3 different approaches that are all the same way to cook. They're all the same way to cook. And coaches have always known that the day before a game, you better back off. And the day after a game, you better give them a day off. But if you practice 3 hours a day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where's your day off? Those guys are burnt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, Coach Q, I cannot wait to meet you at the end of January. We all want to mention that we also have a sprint-based football clinic in Saraland, Alabama, just north of Mobile. John Herschel, an absolute rock star of an S&C guy, is hosting that down there. We got Tony Villani coming. It's going to be John Herschel's going to talk. We have Brad Fortney going to talk. All these things, we're going to learn how to do RPR. So we really want to promote both of those things. And so it's great to have you on. And I hope to have you on again later this year, because I think we could talk another hour.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, easy.
Hey, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Take care.
All right, you too.
Thank you again for listening to the Sprint-Based Football Series on the Coach and Coordinator podcast. Be sure to check out our presenting sponsor, Titan GPS. It's used by sprint-based football coaches to get better data and understand the player load and how they can adjust that over the course of the season. It'll help you find out a lot about your team. It's used by Garrett Muller, who's a 2-time state champion at Stewartville High School in Minnesota. He uses it for all kinds of things, like seeing how his team's speed is progressing over the course of the season. I could say that in 2024, they actually got faster over the course of the season following their sprint-based football recipe. Titan Sensors also has the popular truck stick metric, designed specifically for football and inspired by sprint-based football. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com. You can get our show notes there. We have articles on these episodes as well. And follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.